Thanks for the applause. Can you hear me in the back? Can you hear me? Great, thank you. So now that I've had applause, thank you. You were a great audience, and I guess I could go. Let's see, the presentation is up there. It seems to be running fine. I just finished it an hour ago, so let's hope it stays together. So I'm Lasse, I'm the CEO and co-founder at PlayRaven. And what's a better place to start talking about the future of mobile games than the past? So I have actually a personal question to you today. Is there anybody who was born in the year 1993? Raise your hand. Anybody? Just one guy, two guys, three guys? Okay, I thought there would be more, but okay, that's cool. Great, so 1993 was a pretty interesting year for me because I came to this very cool place that you might recognize. It was called Otaniemi, the Helsinki University of Technology, and I was a first-year student in computer science. Of course, this was a long time ago, like ancient history, so all the photos were black and white, right? And there was an interesting development towards the end of that year, after I'd been a student for a couple of months, because there was this big new invention that became available. It was called the World Wide Web. So the first graphics-based browsers with HTML code in them. So now you know something personal about me as well. I'm old. Moving forward, so when you guys were 3 years old, I sort of took a step outside the university here in Otaniemi. I actually moved from computer science first to industrial management, which was a good move because I'm still using a lot of the principles I learned here from the TUTA department, like the critical chain thinking and action-based costing and so on. Actually had a discussion about the younger producer Tuesday at the Finnish Game Awards gala about these topics, and he immediately asked, so what was the name of the book? So very important years at the university. You should make the most of it. And not just think about, if you want to make games, not just think about game studies, but also other studies. So in 1996, I skipped school and went to Arabianranta to the Media Lab, which was the first place where you could study game design and game production back in the day. Nowadays, it's of course merged here, which would have been convenient, so I wouldn't have had to move. But, you know, better late than never, I guess. Although Arabianranta was a nice area as well, kind of an old-fashioned industrial area. Very, very inspiring, maybe you could say. Okay, so you guys were growing up, you were 7 years old, maybe went to school. I had my first game on the market. Very, very big moment for me, and maybe some of you who might be aspirational game developers like you who are an aspirational game designer. This was a huge moment for me as a first-time game designer. And this game was based on flashy graphics and visual effects, and as you can see from the screen, well, maybe not, because we didn't even have shades of gray. We only have monochrome. The pixel is on or the pixel is off. So, fantastic colors. No, black and white, or green, black and green even, because the background was green. But this game was a defining moment in my career because I had a big learning from this. Most of the other companies were well-funded, they had venture capital behind them. We didn't. We were really a bootstrapped startup company. And most of those other companies were making derivative games. So, you know, the Battleships game, which when you were 7 years old, maybe you were playing the Battleships game on a piece of paper with a grid and saying where you're going to shoot on the other guy's paper and hitting the ships and then marking them off. We decided immediately that we are not going to do what the others are doing. We're going to create our own game mechanics, our own rules for the game. It's going to be submarines versus destroyer ships. And as soon as we sort of finished it, we submitted it to Nokia for a global competition, and it became first. It was the #1 global winner in that competition. And the following day, we got a call from a big VC-funded company who had come second in that contest. And they said, okay, you guys beat us, can we buy the game? So that was a big, big moment for me as a game designer back then, because I realized that making something different can bypass all the market competition. And that's something you need to think about, because many starting game designers, as I did, the first instinct is that I love this game so much that one day I want to make a similar game. But that's not a good way to approach it. It's a good way to learn. It's like if you want to be a painter, you should copy Mona Lisa, you know, because it helps you develop your technique. But you shouldn't try to copy Mona Lisa to sell it as an artist or sort of bring out your own vision through making copies of Mona Lisa. That's pretty obvious, right? But it's not so obvious in the games industry. Games industry is full of copies, and that's what this talk is really about. Because what we did in the past, in 2000, we are doing again here with success. 2004, so the guys who raised their hands were about 11 years old. I met this guy. You might recognize him. He was in the news again yesterday, I think, talking about the immigration problems we have with the legislation and so on. Ilkka Paananen, now the Supercell CEO. He was the CEO of Sumea back in the day, a game studio here, and I was his head of studio. So I was running the internals, I was organizing it all. I had about 30 people there making games. And Ilkka was a fantastic colleague and a boss, and I guess I've never had better. So we remain like good friends, but our careers sort of separated because I had the chance to go and work on AAA development. So around the time when you guys were at high school, I had the pleasure of shipping Alan Wake. This was a $20 million development budget managed by me. So I was the executive producer, chief operating officer at Remedy, and published by Microsoft worldwide. And just to give you an idea of the scope of the game, we were orchestrating the music with the live orchestra in Germany. We were shipping our actors to Arizona and New York for motion capture shooting. We were ordering cars and other like 3D models from Estonia. So it was all over the place, very, very big project. So that's the past. And now we come to the present. So 2013, 2 years ago, we founded with 4 other seasoned developers a company called PlayRaven. And we are focused on strategy games for touchscreens because we think mobile is where the future is. This talk is about the future of mobile games, but you could also say that mobile games is the future for the most part. The other platforms, I don't think they will all disappear, but the relative weight of these things is like when television was first introduced. Think about all the decades, how television just got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So mobile is in that position now, and I doubt that many other platforms will grow as much as mobile gaming. Our company has 3 games. So one is on the market. I'm going to come back to that, Spymaster, where you are running a World War II spy agency. Robocide is coming for soft launch very soon, test market launch in June. And here you are conquering the galaxy with an army of robots. And of course, Winter State, the climate change happened. I'm sorry. And the response from mankind is to get on their cars and start shooting at each other. Because that's the logical way to survive in the frozen wasteland. But as you can see, the portfolio is thought out so that we are not overlapping with the titles, and we are allowing a lot of creative freedom to the teams. And the teams have come up with these ideas. It's not the centralized system where we say, you guys have to make a climate change game or whatever. But we have an intelligent discussion, of course, which games would have a bigger appeal maybe in the mainstream audience. But so that's where we are, and here's a little like summary of the company. 3 games. We have 19 people at the moment. We have 4 jobs open, averaging about 9 years of experience. We have 2 people from Rockstar. Half of our people are foreigners. We have 3 Brazilians, 1 Mexican, 1 Italian, 3 UK guys, and so on. We have some Supercell people, about 5 people from Remedy, about 5 or 6 from Digital Chocolate, Vuga, so on. And we have very solid funding. So last year we raised 5 million euros from international investors. Jari and London Venture Partners were both Supercell investors in the early days of Supercell, and Creandum North Zone both in Spotify, which I believe probably many of you have on your phones or on your machines. I use it all the time. And they both have invested in games before. And of course, Tekes, the National Technology Agency, is supporting us, so we've raised about 1 million euros from them. Great. So I've been just blabbering about everything else except the future of mobile games, which I was supposed to talk about. So what is the future of mobile games? Well, a lot of game developers, when they approach this problem, how do we make a new game into this market? We have to make money, because otherwise, if we don't make money, at some point our company will go bankrupt, we will lose our jobs, and it's just all in vain. It didn't become a big thing, and nobody really played it because it wasn't on the market and so on. The natural instinct is to first check what is already selling, right? So this might seem like a very complicated thing that I put there, but this is basically the iPhone App Store top list. Top 5 for free, paid applications, and then the top grossing list. And most people look at the top grossing list, the column on the right, for most guidance. So you can see Clash of Clans is either number 1 or number 2 on most markets in this slide. And yeah, it's a good information, right? That if they can make money, maybe we can make money with something similar, right? But the problem with this approach is that it's really not the holistic analysis. It's just partial information. It's like driving with only your rear view mirror. You're looking at the past. Clash of Clans was released almost 3 years ago. The development started about 4 years ago. If you start developing now something based on stuff they started developing 4 years ago, you've got to be very careful what you're doing. You might be actually making something that is already obsolete and old-fashioned. Another way to look at this, to sort of internalize it, is let's take the beverage market, soda. If you want to have a startup and you want to make soda, and sell it to people, refresh them, what would be the top grossing there? What would be the brand or the type of soda that makes the most money? It's pretty obvious. Probably the world's best-known brand, huge sales. There isn't a lot of people on the planet who haven't tasted Coca-Cola, right? So for a startup, if you look at the top list, right, then of course, because they're selling a lot, we should make our own cola. That would be a good way to get into the market and make money and stay in the business. Maybe not. And it's not what Coca-Cola did. Because when Coca-Cola arrived on the market, they didn't do a copy of an existing beverage. They did something that was very, very different and very cleverly designed, from the shape of the bottle to the logo to the color scheme of the whole product, even the color of the drink itself. But of course, there's the taste. The taste has to also deliver. Otherwise, it's just clever branding and people will try it once. But of course, this approach doesn't work there, so why would it work in games? It doesn't make sense. There are companies with tens or hundreds of millions of euros and dollars that are trying to do this. And if you have a startup and you try to compete with them, my opinion is that you will fail. The way we see this platform at PlayRaven is that it is a new mass medium. I already made the comparison to TV. It's quite staggering because these devices, Android and iOS, there's much more than 2 million already on the market. The global install base of television is 1.5 billion. So this is way bigger, and it's just getting bigger than TV ever was. And if you think about the content offering in TV, it would be ludicrous to say that everybody wants to watch Simpsons and nothing else. It's very rich content selection in TV, from reality TV to Game of Thrones, Walking Dead, and so on. And new categories are introduced even decades after the platform has been established. So there's always room for a really clever idea that establishes a new category, like reality TV did and like Coca-Cola did over 100 years ago. This is what we believe in at PlayRaven, that the future is not to copy something that is already existing. But why do so many developers think like that? Why is it our first instinct to make these cartoony, fantasy, village-building match-3 games? I think one part of the problem is the speed of growth of that platform. iOS, do you have a question? Yes. I spoke with the #1 Clash of Clans player, who was the #1 Clash of Clans player last fall, and he said he had never played a game before. He had never gotten addicted by any games, but he became the #1 player in Clash of Clans. So that gives you an idea of how this platform can also capture new gamers. The speed of that growth has been staggering, and many content developers don't react so fast. They still think that we are in 2010 or 2011, but we have added more than 1 billion devices after that. The audience is not the same as it used to be. So the speed of that growth is also been a reason why other companies are copying. And this is what we think one size just doesn't fit all. And if we think about the box of the top grossing, really the blue ocean that we want to dive into with our games is outside the box. And it's a paradox because that box is very competitive, and outside it there's no competition if you can just unlock the box and get out of it. And yeah, it sounds very nice in theory, right? Blah, 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 there's blue oceans, whatever. But, you know, I don't want to just theorize. We already proved it to ourselves. We launched Spymaster in September last year. The results from a game that was completely different from anything else on the market, it surprised us as well. We were thinking we are making a Western audience game aimed mainly at the US and the UK markets with realistic humans, World War II in Europe as the setting, and running a spy agency with this kind of Western visual themes. But it just went up the charts everywhere. It was top 10 in India, in Hong Kong, Philippines, top 2 in the UK and the US, so Middle East, Africa. We were totally surprised by this. We didn't actually design the game for all these audiences. And that's a geographic reach, but also the demographic reach. We have 1/3 female fans, which was very surprising, and about 20% are teenagers, so it's not for middle-aged men who like war history. And if you think about the game, like a TV series, if you made a TV series about spying during wartime, I can see the appeal. You could easily make a big, like a HBO TV series out of that. It's not the thematic that limits the audience. It's really how you build the game to fulfill the wishes of those people who are interested in that theme. So if I try to summarize a little bit, how do we find the future of mobile games? Well, the same way anything new has been found before. If you were Christopher Columbus in the 15th century, you wouldn't be able to theorize that America is exactly there. But you could theorize that there must be something there. And you just have to get a boat and sail there. And the way to do this in business, you have to manage a risk. What if you are wrong? That you were making a spy game and nobody cares about the spy game. The way to manage this professionally in a business setting, of course, is building a portfolio. That's why we have 3 teams working on 3 games that are quite different and looking for different audiences with different kinds of mechanics. One is very real time, like reaction speed is important, so on. Another one is turn-based, where you can take all the time in the world to think about what you're doing, and so on. That's basically all I had. Thank you. Let's discover the future.
All right, thank you, Lasse. One question. You mentioned that you had 4 open positions. Is that right?
Yes.
Is there some kind of qualifications that you should have?
Well, all the jobs are at that URL, so of course that's a good place to start. Basically, we are looking for a designer, a UI-oriented artist, server programmer, and a client programmer for a game team. They will form a full game team. All of these job ads say senior, but we're always willing to talk to like talented people who might not have all the experience in the world. The tools we use, Unity is very important. Everything we do is built in Unity. But maybe some special things that have been hard to find. I could mention that if you have usability understanding, not just pretty graphics and making pretty icons and buttons, but really understanding how people perceive the different screens and the different layouts and how they will, understand that that's important in the screen and so on. That's something that we are currently really, really looking for.
Riitta mentioned that you have promised to stay in Design Factory for half an hour. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so everybody who's interested, Lasse's here, go and talk to him. All right, is there any other questions?
Hi. Is this on? Oh. You were mentioning that you think the mobile games are the future, but I'm wondering, do you think that mobile games can challenge the PC and consoles in the core gamer markets? Because how I nowadays see mobile games is like it's like those for 5-minute sessions waiting for the bus and stuff like that. And when I want to spend my evening gaming, I'm gonna open up my PC, load up Steam, and play a game.
Oh, they will not disappear. That's not what I meant. I meant that the relative growth is going to be quite modest growth in those existing markets and explosive growth on the mobile area. That will create a much bigger sphere of business in the mobile. But there will still be a console business, PC business, and so on, in my opinion.
Yeah, but I'm like, for instance, like, do you think it can challenge in some respects, like grow in a bit of that direction? Is there some?
What do you mean challenge?
Like, do you see there's some potential in mobile games where you can, it's more than those 5-minute sessions and...
Oh, yes, absolutely. It's just like TV formats. You started out with a very narrow selection of TV formats and the understanding of how to put the ad break into the story of the thing and so on. If you look at the TV series in the 1960s, they were quite rigid and in the same formula. And now, these days, you can do a lot of like creative things there, and some things can be very long. If you think about how people follow 5 seasons of Game of Thrones, and how you can enter the story in the 5th season without having seen the 4th season, and so on. I think there's a lot of room to do the same thing in mobile, where this is the stone age of mobile still. We haven't learned to do this content properly. There's going to be a rich variety of longer sessions. By the way, Spy Masters, one of the sort of most popular session lengths is 15 to 20 minutes in that game, not 5 minutes.
Okay, thanks.
The other talker said that, in his opinion, the mobile game market is kind of full. Do you think that's true?
Full. It's full inside the box. If you just try to do what the others are doing, it's full of opportunity outside the box. If you're doing a creative, fresh new game that has wide appeal, of course, you have to pick your theme and pick your game mechanics so that it has the possibility to be interesting to a lot of people.
Sorry to ask every single person in this evening, but anyway, I'm going to ask you also. And is this all right? All right. So Do you know Mr. Juha Huhtakallio?
I know you, hi, yes.
So you know him? Know him. So
I know, I have hired him once, 10 years ago. Yeah.
And so he was kind of a guy who taught me about game design. So I would like to ask you about the. I have one game, a kind of a mechanical idea, which is not been done before. But I'm going to ask you if I'm going to tell this to all these audiences. Please do not spread or steal it. I do have one idea which I would like to tell if you're promising not to steal it.
Markus, you can also talk to Lasse after the
Alright.
session
Yeah,
if you
maybe it's
don't
better
want
to
to
talk
share
about-
it with everybody.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you have like hundreds of other people who
All
might
right,
get there
I'm not
first.
telling
Yeah,
it in
I
front of.
I understand your concern. I can just generally comment on the. Let's talk afterwards.
Yeah.
But, I can just generally comment that I think it's very, very, very hard to steal an idea in this market. Because if you had an idea like you can slingshot a bird to a collapsing structure. If I just say that idea, are you going to make Angry Birds? It's, would you even invest €500,000 into it? It's pretty unlikely that anybody would be able to both steal and then make the investment and even make a successful game out of that. It's very unlikely.
My actual question is actually in front of all the audiences is how to present your game innovation idea in front of the people, not to be kind of put yourself out of business, kind of in the sense of kind of if you kind of let people know your idea, it's like how to keep it as your idea, which you make business with. That's my question is actually.
I'm not sure.
What is
we were very open with Spymaster. I think it's a good example to what you're saying. We were a business. We had put our own money into it. We had all the financial risk ourselves. 3 months after we started talking about Spymaster and putting out screenshots of early development and everything. And we launched it like 18 months later. And there was no copy of that game from anywhere,
Yeah.
So maybe that answers your question in a roundabout way.
Yeah. Okay, I need to discuss with you after
Yeah, let's
this.
talk.
Okay,
Cool.
any
Thank
other
you.
questions? No? Okay, thank you Lasse and thank you everybody for attending and I hope to see you on the other side of this area here on Design Factory. Thank you.
Thank you. This was fun.